Just want to take a moment before the episode starts and just mention how our hearts are heavy. Um, Earlier last week during the Super Bowl parade, there was a mass shooting and it was horrific. There was, I believe, 21 people that were injured and harmed by this awful thing that happened. And um, the people that caused the shooting to happen are being held accountable. But again, our hearts are heavy. We always see this stuff happen on the news. We see it on our TikTok, on our Facebook, on our Instagram, and it is always sad. Um, but it's just a lot different when it hits us close to home, and it's just a surreal feeling. So, um, of course, we're praying for the families and the people affected by this, but we also need to pray for Kansas City. What is going on? Welcome to the Royal Center podcast. Hope you guys are having a good morning, a great afternoon, and amazing evening, wherever you are, whatever time it is for you. Thank you for taking the time to drop in and give us a listen. So, this week was a great week to be a Kansas City Royals fan. We saw some stuff happen, but we are going to get into that later on throughout the podcast. When I started to film this episode of the podcast, I kind of just stopped. I stopped filming for about 2 weeks. There wasn't much to talk about. There was a few different things, like I said, that I'm going to talk about later on throughout the episode, but not enough for me to make a full 20-minute episode off that topic. So, like I said, I kind of just stopped for about 2 weeks, and now we have some stuff to talk about. It's time to get excited. At the time of filming this, Royals baseball is back tomorrow. They start their spring training opener against the Rangers. But of course, like always, let's start out the episode by talking about some moves that happened in all of Major League Baseball this week. The first move of the week was an Orioles-Brewers trade. The Orioles traded Joey Ortiz and DL Hall. In return, they got Corbin Burns. In addition to the Ortiz and Hall acquisition from the Brewers, they are also receiving a competitive balance round A draft pick from the Orioles. Next up, the Twins made one of the first moves in quite some time. They signed first base Carlos Santana to a one-year contract. He's coming off a pretty good season from the Brewers and the Pirates, where he slashed 240, 318, 429 with 23 home runs and 86 RBIs. He definitely had a bounce back season after the 2022 awful season with the Royals. Next up, the Brewers signed former Royal Jacob Junis to a one-year, $7 million contract. Next up, it wouldn't be a episode of the podcast if I didn't mention the Dodgers at least once. The Dodgers re-signed left-handed pitcher Clayton Kershaw to a one-year contract. Next up, the Astros signed second baseman Jose Altuve to a 5-year, $125 million contract extension. Next up, the Brewers made another move. They signed catcher Gary Sanchez to a one-year contract. Next up, two-time AL Cy Young Award winner Corey Kluber announced his retirement after 13 Major League seasons. He debuted with Cleveland in 2011, and then he went on to play with the Yankees, Rays, and Red Sox, and when we thought he was done, he threw that no-hitter with the New York Yankees. Next up, the Marlins and the Twins made a trade. The Marlins sent Stephen Okert to the Twins. In return, they received Nick Gordon. Next up, the Phillies signed right-handed pitcher Spencer Turnbull to a one-year, $2 million contract. He can also earn up to $2 million in performance bonuses. Next up, the Pirates signed catcher Yasmani Grandal to a one-year contract. Next up, the Padres signed infield/outfield Jerkson Profar to a one-year contract, and he is headed back to San Diego. Next, the Giants signed outfield Jorge Soler to a 3-year, $42 million contract. Next up, the move that probably hurt the most out of the entire offseason was the fact that the Phillies signed infield Whit Merrifield to a one-year, $8 million contract. Gotta give the respect to Whit Merrifield, though. He was willing to take the low money, the low contract to be on a winning ball team, especially after he came off a really good season. He was just an all-star last year. He batted 272, 318, 382 with 11 home runs and 67 RBIs, also stealing 26 bases. He is one of the few guys that no matter where he goes, who he plays for, what team it is, whether it's a rival, whether it's not a rival, I will always root for him and hope that he does the best. Next up, the Red Sox signed left-handed pitcher Liam Kendricks to a 2-year contract worth $10 million. I'm not sure why they have Kenley Jansen as their closer. This kind of makes me believe they are going to trade Jansen at one point throughout the season, whether it's before the season starts or before the deadline. Next up, the active Brewers re-signed right-handed pitcher Brandon Woodruff to a 2-year contract. He is expected to miss most of the 2024 season, if not all of the 2024 season. Next up, the Pirates signed right-handed pitcher Mitch Keller to a 5-year, $77 million contract extension. Next, the Marlins signed shortstop Tim Anderson to a 1-year, $5 million contract. That is going to wrap up MLB News of the Week. Let's go ahead and get into some Royals topics. First off, the Royals and the Red Sox made a trade this week. The Royals traded their 19th ranked prospect, David Sandlin. In return, they got relief pitcher John Schreiber, and I kind of like this move. I think this is a good move for the bullpen. Definitely going to improve the bullpen. I really like John's stuff. I'm definitely excited to see him out in that bullpen. Next up, the Royals signed Austin Nola to a minor league contract. I don't hate this move. I don't love this move. Austin Nola hasn't been great. His stats from 2022 to 2023, where he had a 222 batting average, 106 hits, 5 home runs, 48 RBIs, 49 runs scored, in 162 games. The reason why I don't think it's an awful move is because it's always good to have catcher depth. I definitely don't think he should be on the major league roster, but the catcher position is one of the most injury positions in all of baseball, and can't expect Salvi to be healthy all year. Can't expect Freddie Fermin to be healthy all year. I like this a lot better than the Sandy Leon acquisition. Next up, the Royals released their renderings for the downtown stadium located in Crossroads of downtown Kansas City. The stadium capacity is set to range from 34,000 to 34,500, and the field dimensions are still in early discussions. The stadium target date to open is April of 2028. I still have mixed emotions on how I feel about this. Of course, in the renderings, the stadium looks absolutely beautiful, and that it would be a lie to say it doesn't. The only downside that I see about it, of course, is going to be the parking. That's every single person's first complaint and first worry is the parking. Second one is I don't see Crown Vision there. Crown Vision, I mean, it's not a huge deal if it's not in the new stadium. It's just disappointing because that's one of the coolest aspects of the entire stadium. And for 3, I'm still in that mindset where I feel like a new stadium isn't necessary. But that's my opinion. Either way, I think the new stadium is going to look beautiful. I think it's going to be awesome. I know I'm going to go every single year, multiple times a year. And it's going to be also awesome because there's going to be a lot more of stuff to do after the game, before the game, all that fun stuff. And they plan on having a ballpark district right outside the stadium, which is going to be really cool. And again, I just think these pictures look absolutely awesome. I think the location looks really good. But of course, we all have those concerns. Next up, I don't think I can hold it off anymore. The absolutely biggest thing of the entire offseason, probably really one of the biggest things in Royals history. The Royals finally extended Bobby Witt Jr. It's 11 years, $288.7 million guaranteed, 14 years, $377.7 million possible. That is the biggest contract in Royals history. And if the entire contract pans out, that could be the 3rd biggest contract in baseball history. And I'm going to go ahead and stop talking for just a minute, and I'm going to insert some clips from the press conference of the contract extension.
The shortstop, number 7, Bobby Witt Jr.
Bobby Witt Jr. is on another level right now.
This is the organization I got drafted by. The goal would be just to win a World Series, but I think it just makes it feel a lot more special if you're able to do it with that team you came up with.
First of all, this is a huge day in Kansas City, and there's a lot going on in Kansas City this week, so to get people's attention on something like this, it's a big deal. But this is a big day for our fans, for our city, for our club, and certainly for Bobby. Don't want to repeat a whole lot, but it's exciting for us. This is a great day in Royals history and really Kansas City history. It's exciting. I want to thank Bobby for wanting to be a Royal long term. I think early on when we started out, that was like the biggest question we had to get over, and it was very apparent that Bobby was committed and very comfortable with being in Kansas City, and that was exciting for us. I want to thank Bobby Sr. and Lori for your support, not only today, but really going back to 2019 and trusting our organization and allowing us to be a part of his growth as a player and really becoming a teenager and becoming a young man and soon to be husband. And Maggie, congratulations to you and thank you for your support because Kansas City is your home as well. So thank you. Scotty,
Pacino was outstanding through these negotiations. Obviously, Senior was involved as well, but the openness and the confidence that we had in each other to continue dialogue. Common goal at the end was to try to keep Bobby here, but there were some things, like most negotiations, you got to get through. But I appreciate you hanging with us and us finishing this off here. 2019, kind of an interesting year. We draft Bobby, and then Mr. Sherman becomes the owner. And without Mr. Sherman's support and our entire ownership group, we don't have the opportunity to sign a player with Bobby's talent. So we appreciate your support through this, not only with Bobby, but all of the free agents and the commitments we've made this offseason. It was a great offseason for us, and we're excited about 24 and the years to come. Now, also, quickly want to thank Brooks Sherman for his guidance and advice along the way. This gets pretty complicated, and having somebody that you can bounce ideas off of was very helpful. Scott Sharp, as Sam mentioned, his creativity and trying to come up with a structure that would allow this deal to ultimately come to fruition. So Scott did a great job. Lonnie Goldberg is mentioned. Without Lonnie's vision of what type of player Bobby could be, and it really started even before 2019. That draft, it wasn't just a couple months of scouting Bobby and getting to know his family and what he's about. There was a lot of years put in. So Lonnie, thank you, because that was a huge part of where we are today. Finally, just again, special day for Kansas City. This process ramped up in September. Once we got to the winter meetings and got going through the holidays, we felt pretty good that we were going to be able to get to a deal. But we're very fortunate that Bobby wants to be part of Kansas City. He shares our vision, wants to win. That was very clear, and we're just proud that you're here. So thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you to Mr. Sherman and all the ownership, just believing in me and for what's to come, and then to JJ and all the front office, and then just the Kansas City Royals organization as a whole, from coaches, teammates, to everyone who's been with me through this ride and for the ride to come. And then also to my family. I wouldn't be here without them, and it's just great for my parents, mom, dad, my 3 older sisters, my brother-in-laws, and Maggie. It's just a blessing to be in this situation here. And then to the fans of Kansas City, I'm just honored to be here, to be able to play here and call this place my home.
That's good. Bob, congratulations. You're always so even keel. I'm curious what the emotions are like right now, 1 and 2, what it means to make this your home.
It's unbelievable. It's like I said, it's truly just an honor, a blessing. I've never really have had tears of joy, maybe like 3 or 4 times. All of my sister's weddings, when I got drafted, and now today. And so it's pretty special. This feeling's amazing. And so, yeah.
The message to the fans. Well, I hope, it's. I think anybody that knows us, we've been committed to winning for a long time, right? There's not a straight line between point A and point B, but I think at the end of the day, it's not. It can't just be what you say; it has to be what you do. And so I would hope that people would take from this, and this off season that JJ and his team have engineered are indicative of our commitment to winning, and we want to do something special for the fans of Kansas City.
Why financially do you think you were able to do this, and does it suggest that other teams of the same market size would be able to do the same thing?
I don't want to speak for the other ones, but I can tell you, in this particular case, we just feel really good about the player and really good about the structure. And look, we understand the value of a player like this. The structure was certainly important, but this is, and also I think as a small market team, we'll never use that as an excuse. There may be some things in baseball that could be improved over the long haul from a competitive balance and parity standpoint, but all I know is what we can do here, and we want to do something special for Kansas City, for our fans. And we've been thinking about this deal. I really I'm serious. I was dreaming about it a little bit in spring training one day when, I think he was about 19 years old, right? And you can see the promise and the hope, but now we've seen it at the major league level, and we all know how hard that is to make that transition to we see all kinds of really talented players that struggle, but Bobby keeps working. His work ethic is kind of off the charts. Every once in a while I'll go out to my suite on a game day at 3:30 in the afternoon, and a lot of times he's in the cage doing extra work, right? And so all of that, and not just his own individual performance, but how he will elevate, all of us and the rest of the team by being here. So that's kind of all. It's really about the Kansas City Royals. I'm not sure I'm going to get a standing ovation when I go to Orlando today for the owners' meetings, but there'll certainly be respect.
Well, I think clearly Bobby's background, being the son of a longtime major league player, makes a difference. But his work ethic, the type of person he is. I mean, you're talking about somebody that knows he's the most talented guy when he steps on the field, probably since he was 6 or 7 years old, but cares about his teammates just as much. And that's a very special quality, and that's a lot of what brings us comfort to be able to commit long term, knowing that that's what makes him special aside from just his talents on the field. But he was clearly raised exceptionally well, very respectful. Never run into a player, a coach, he's the guy everybody enjoys being around. And I think it's when you think about long term, some of the things it can do for us, players are going to want to come play with Bobby Witt Jr. And that's immeasurable right now. But in our conversations with free agents this offseason, there was one question everyone asked, and tell me about Bobby Witt Jr. So that's going to continue. But special person, special talent, and a lot of comfort in committing to somebody like this.
It's unbelievable. It's just being able, all the text messages I was getting, just seeing like breaking news, and it was me, and so it was pretty. it was pretty special, and just all the like I said, the support from family, friends. It was pretty special being able to just see the text messages from the guys. One of them being Patrick Mahomes was pretty cool. But yeah, just from everyone, just all the support, the city, and even just kind of going around. Like we were out Fan Fest this past weekend, everyone's like, "Oh, when do you get that contract done? When do you get that contract? We want you here forever. We want you to be the Kansas City and forever." And so it's just pretty special just to be able to hear that, all the support and all the love from everyone.
Well, we secured a superstar in the game, so that's step number one. So we're going to have a player here in the middle of our lineup or top of the lineup, whatever it ends up being, that's here for a lot of years, and it gives us something to build around. Not to downplay anything that's happening today, but I think our front office learned that Kansas City is a destination spot for free agents. It was nice to be able to sign guys and represent what does Kansas City bring for you and your family, and what's our vision of the organization. And then when you have some pillars, there's stability there in the coming years when we have to acquire players via free agency or try to trade for players. We have somebody to build around, and that's exciting for us and gives us reason to believe that our long-term vision is possible, and that's to sustain success over many years and be competitive year in, year out.
Bobby, what did Pat say to you in the text?
He was pretty fired up. He said, "Let's go. Can't wait to see what you do for the city and what's to come." And I just said, "Just bring another one home, and that'll be a start." And so, yeah.
How much of a factor was Kansas City's support even during down years in choosing to stay here at the
Yeah, it's huge. It's one of the biggest things. Just shows you how supportive all the fans are, how the people in Kansas City are, and you see what they're doing kind of across the street with the fan bases over there. We want to get that kind of back to over here in blue, and so that's definitely the goal. And we're just going to keep working to get better each and every day, each and every year. And so I'm really looking forward to just kind of being here.
Congratulations. I was just saying as we were coming back from the news conference that really what we all observed, or those watching at home or wherever they're at observed, is that's Bobby in a nutshell right there. Very humble, nice little sneaky sense of humor, very competitive. I still feel like a lot of people don't totally know him yet. They just know how good he might be. How indicative of Bobby was that?
Yeah, well, when we think about making a long-term commitment like we did, it's that personality that we're making the commitment to. There's a humility about him. There's a competitive fire in there, but there's a humility about him that is pretty special. You do get concerned with some people when contracts may distract them. This is not going to distract Bobby Witt Jr. He's anxious to get on the field, in Arizona here in the next couple of days, and that's where there's a lot of comfort for us.
I think one of the, I would imagine, challenges for any team, certainly a small market team, is that the structure of baseball usually is one that has you signing long-term deals to guys that have already proven themselves, and then you got to deal with the back end and them getting older or compete with other teams that have a lot more money. It's a lot to give someone this type of money as a 23-year-old, yet I feel like he's so different than almost any 23-year-old, not just the talent, but what you just talked about. How unique of a circumstance is this to be able to get a guy at the very front end knowing that he hasn't even come close to his prime yet?
Yeah, that's where, when you think about where Bobby is in his career, the things we think he's going to do, like the improvements we saw from one year to the next were incredible. But then just the comfort in knowing that he's going to show up every day, he's going to compete. But then you try to think, how can we get a long-term deal here? And that's where the creativity had to come in. The first thing was knowing that he wanted to be here, and he clearly wanted to be here. And then just trying to factor in future earnings, what are free agent values going to be 7 years from now, 10 years from now, 12 years from now, and factoring all those in and giving him the opportunity, even though it's an extension, to essentially be paid like a free agent would be paid, and that's how the dollars read.
We'll let you go and talk to everybody. Congratulations on an incredible move. Thanks, JJ.
All right, thanks, Joel.
And now we will bring in right now the man of the hour, Bobby Witt Jr.
What's going on?
Congratulations. What's going on? Just another day. I've not seen that smile leave your face today. Congratulations. I was just telling JJ that what we just saw up there from you is who you are: competitive, humble, happy. But this is not a normal day for you. I mean, I've always marveled, at least in the 2 years that I've watched you play, how nothing really changes. You just stay the same, which is an incredible thing to do at 23 years old. But you mentioned in the press conference, this is a little bit different, is it not?
Yeah, I'd say so, but just trying to take it like just another day, It's just, you got to take it all in, enjoy every moment, because these things don't happen. So you just got to take it all in. It's just amazing what happens whenever you just kind of work hard and put things in God's hands. So it's a great thing. I'm really honored and just really ready to represent this team.
Was this in any way a nerve-wracking process, or nice and calm? I know it's got to be nice that among your representation is your father, who you trust as much as anybody. But I mean, this is business. This is life too. What was the nerve level like as this was going?
Very low for me, because I trust, like you said, my agents, my dad, and then the Royals. And it was just it was a fun process, honestly. Because I really can't really look at it as this, like, yeah, it's long term, but I just got to take it as, all right, what do I need to do to get ready for this year? And that was my process. If it happened, it happened. If it didn't, oh well. And just kind of really just take everything day by day and just really stay in the present moment and not really worry about if it doesn't happen, what do I need to do to improve to make it happen, or if it did happen, what do I need to prove now that it did happen? I just got to go out there, continue to be myself, don't do too much, don't do too little, and just go out there and have fun and try to win some more games.
One of the things that I heard a little bit behind the scenes over the last year was, yes, incredible interest from the team, didn't know any details, but the one thing that I would hear regularly was, we have to show Bobby that we're committed to winning, that we think that he will love this place because this city, its personality fits your personality, but he's not going to want to stay and lose year after year after year. So how important were all the moves that were made this offseason, not just in getting ready for 2024 and erasing some of the misery of last year, but long term? How important was that commitment to you?
It was huge, and it's not only the guys that we signed, but it's the guys that we had. A lot of them, we're all younger guys, and we're just maturing. We're getting better each and every year, and it was great this offseason just talking with all the guys, just knowing what they're working on, knowing they're all getting better, and just seeing the guys improve each and every day, and it's unbelievable. And so I think that not only the free agents are going to really help us, the veteran presence, but our own guys, our homegrown guys, and all the guys that we have are going to be even better, because every year in the big leagues you're getting better, and that's our goal, and that's what we're trying to do. And I know that our track record the last 2 years doesn't say it, but this is where I want to be, and I feel like gonna show after this year and just what's to come.
You referenced that you don't tear up a whole lot, but at all three of your sisters' weddings, draft day, and now today, you have been and always will be the baby of the family, right? Older sisters, your oldest, I think Nikki, significantly older, bringing you to Wrigley Field with your brother-in-law who pitched at the time for the Cubs. What are you hearing from all of your siblings who I know look at you like the baby brother, even though you're now the man?
It's just a blessing. That's what they say. They tell me just take it all in, enjoy the moment. They're here for everything, and they've been there my whole life. And so there's just like I always say, it's like having three other moms with me and just always supporting me, and that just shows you kind of where I'm at today, just with the support from my family, my friends, my teammates, my coaches, and this organization. So I'm really looking forward to what's to come.
And you get to share it with your fiancée, Maggie. I said to her, the wedding planning maybe could change now. I don't know if the budget's going to go up or not. Everybody's going to joke about that. But I know how humble you are, too. It's not like suddenly you're going to be this extravagant guy. But tell me about that. I mean, among all the amazing things going on in your life right now, the most important is a wedding. How have you two been able to enjoy this and that?
Yeah, it's been awesome. That was probably one of the most nervous I've ever been, and so yeah, just being able to do that, her saying yes, it's been a great process, and really looking forward to next offseason getting married. But now it's time. I did all my planning process that I needed, and now it's her time to go shine and do that, and I'm ready for this season and what's to come.
All right, last thing, I know how much the city loves you. You're feeling that love as well. You got talk about Patrick Mahomes and your relationship with him. I love that you're still giddy over the fact that you get a text message from a guy that really does consider you a friend, but that's exciting too. But when you walked down the elevator today to come out to this press conference, the whole organization was waiting in the lobby cheering for you. I don't know that you expected that. Tell me what you thought. I could see a little bit of almost, I want to go hide here. I mean, all the eyes were on you. That's different than being in the batter's box for you. What did that mean?
It's so special. That just shows you what this organization's all about. People first, and just being able to see all that support from all the employees with the Royals, it was unbelievable just being able to do that. I felt I was in shock, and I'm just kind of sometimes that awkward little boy, and I just kind of went into that show there because I was like, this is for me. Yeah, that's just so special, just the love for them, and just try to hopefully give back to them and win some games.
Cannot wait to watch it year after year after year, just getting started. Congratulations to you, to Maggie, to your mom, your dad, your sisters, your family, everybody, and your extended family. We're so excited that you're going to be here long term, and
all those
really looking forward to it. Thanks, Bobby.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Apologies for adding so much, but I felt like there was a lot to cover because this was just such a big, awesome deal. That was the biggest thing that happened for the Kansas City Royals fans. It was probably the second biggest thing that happened for Kansas City this week as the Kansas City Chiefs defeated the 49ers in Super Bowl 58 to take home the championship. Next up on the podcast, I'm going to go ahead and hop on a call with the Press Royals fan, and we're going to go ahead and go over our 2024 offseason gradings. We made a post earlier throughout the week about it, and we are going to just go ahead and talk about why we chose what we chose on this episode of the podcast. Get right into this, get started. Go ahead and tell us about why you chose Seth Lugo as the best signing of the offseason.
I kind of went with Seth Lugo being our best signing. I mean, his stats, for one, obviously, I'm kind of looking at him now. He was 3.55 ERA last year. He was decent with the strikeouts. I know he has a really good curveball, and he's kind of like Brad Keller in 2019, a big ground ball pitcher, and with an elite defense, infield defense like ours, that's huge. And given how big Kaufman is, the rare fly ball he gives up, it's probably not going to leave out. But my main reason for having Lugo as our best signing was just because it's sort of, he wasn't the first one. Will Smith was, but he kind of was like the first domino to fall because then that led to Waka. In fact, I just heard a story that supposedly like Lugo and Stratton, or maybe it was Will Smith and somebody else, but like they were almost recruiting guys. Will Smith was, because they wanted to have like other players with kids on the team so that they weren't like the only family with kids. So like to me, Seth Lugo and I guess in a way Will Smith too for that reason are kind of the best signing because it sort of snowballed into Waka and Frazier and Renfro.
Yeah, for sure. They're definitely up there for one of the best signings, I think, as well. But yeah, I chose Michael Waka just because he had a great season last year. He really had I don't like saying a bounce back season because his season in 2022 is pretty good. Um, but I mean, the Royals faced the Padres and they saw how good he was. We had a no hitter going into I believe, the eighth or the ninth inning against him, and he was definitely probably one of the toughest pitchers I watched the Royals face. And not only that, he's a veteran. He's been in the league for 10 years, going on his 11th, and that's always a good presence to have. And this was one of the first veteran signings that I've been okay with because usually we sign a veteran and they're not good. And this one it stuck out to me because I mean he just came off a season where he went 14-4 with a 3.22 ERA. That ERA, of course, could get a little lower, but that's pretty good for the most part. I mean, it can't get much worse than that, especially with the rotation that we had last year. But I think he's definitely going to help out the guys the guys that didn't do great last year, and I think on top of that, he's going to be a great addition to the team.
Yeah, and I know he's got some postseason pedigree too. He won the NLCS MVP back in 2013 with the Cardinals, his rookie year, and kind of balled out in the World Series that year as well. They of course lost, but he's had a bit of a history with playing in high end games, and not just that, but like playing well in high end games. So I think one trend the Royals have is they always get guys who have been in situations like that for the sake of teaching the young guys. But I think this is the first time we've actually gotten a guy who can not only teach the young guys how to perform in high-end situations, but who still has the capability of going out and performing in those high-end situations.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm also kind of just skimming over his stats, and I mean, he aside from 2020, I mean, record-wise, he has not been bad at all. ERA wise, 2020 and 2021 were not great seasons, but he's had a sub 450 ERA, and I know 450 isn't great, but we're also Royals fans, so that's better than we have for sure. So next up, we got sleeper signing. What made you choose Adam Frazier for your sleeper signing?
I kind of liked Adam Frazier because we got him for cheap. He was kind of the piece to the puzzle, but he kind of reminds me of a left-handed Whit Merrifield. He can play anywhere on the field. Great contact hitter. He doesn't have a lot of power, but he's not going to strike out. And one common issue I saw a lot last year with the team, and this is kind of a young guy thing, we got a little better as the year went on, but it was a really big problem early in the year. We could not score guys that were on base. Like we did really well getting guys on base and in scoring position, but we could never knock them in because we had a bit of an issue with swinging for the fence and trying to get that big hit. And that's not really a shock. A lot of young teams do that, but a team that has aspirations of winning a really weak division, you're going to kind of need a guy like Adam Frazier who does the little things and knows that he shouldn't be swinging for the fence. He should be swinging for contact, and that'll help the runs pile up.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny. Same kind of reason for my pick. I chose Garrett Hampson because it reminded me a lot of Whit Merrifield. He's primarily a second baseman, but he can play outfield. He can play shortstop. He's also speedy, and he's a contact hitter, not a power hitter as well. And similar to what you said, I mean, last year we saw, of course, young guys, it's going to happen. They're going to go out and try to ball out and hit home runs. But clearly, I mean, statistically wise, that's not what Garrett Hampson's trying to do. He's trying to go out there and just get a base hit, driving a run. He can also steal bags. I mean, he doesn't have many stolen bases, but he can steal bags, and that's one thing the Royals like. And I don't think it can be a bad pick or a bad signing, I should say. Overall, I think it's definitely going to be a good mentor for the team that we have. The guys that we have are getting older to where they don't need much teaching done, but there's always room for to be taught something for sure.
Yeah. And some of the things I've been hearing about the Adam Frazier signing is their mentality with getting a veteran utility guy is that if a guy like Massey or Melendez struggles again, this will give them a chance to be sent down to the minors because, last year you couldn't really do that with Massey or Melendez when they struggled because who was going to replace them? Nobody was. But with a situation like this, it gives them an opportunity to correct whatever the mistake they have in AAA rather than having to keep having the same issue on the big league level. And that does take some pressure off of Massey and Melendez because while they don't want to be sent down to the minors, it's better to maybe be sent down to the minors and figure some of your quirks out there rather than having to be thrown into the fire at the big league level where guys are just going to attack you repetitively and you never really get a chance to catch up.
Yeah, for sure. And that, like you said, that's especially the past 2 years, that's what it's been like. And I try to tell people this when they talk bad about the last two Royal seasons. And got to understand we haven't had that movement. We haven't been able to in Bobby's rookie year, which realistically he wasn't going to be sent back down, and I could see that from the start. But we couldn't send him back down for any help because we had nobody to call back up. Because I mean, in the past 2 years, I mean, we've called up, I believe, 15 different players, and that just means every single person in our system is very not grown. I suppose that's the best way to say it. They don't have much experience, and that's one thing that's good about trying to get that depth. And the Royals not have only went out there and gotten major league help, but they've also gotten depth help. And if I made this post today, I would have said instead of Garrett Hampson, I probably would have went with Aaron Nola, because again, that's some more minor league depth that we could be using. Of course, I think it's a major league contract now. It was initially a minor league contract, but it doesn't hurt, especially. I mean, we've heard it so many times over the years: low risk, high reward. And we did a lot of that, but we also did a lot of just spending money. And that's both of our sleeper signing picks were very low risk, high reward. And I think it'll definitely help out the team.
Sure.
So for best move, I think for any Royals fan, best move is kind of an obvious one. You chose the Bobby Witt Jr. extension. And you also chose the Anderson and Wright trade. What's your reasoning behind both of those?
Yeah, well, the Bobby one's kind of obvious. It was a record-shattering contract. Blew Salvi's out of the water by like $200 million and maybe more if Bobby maxes it out to 14 years. But my thing with the Anderson Wright trade, I don't know how long we have control over Anderson. I believe it's 2 years. But with him and Wright, it's like we gave up nothing for two guys that are going to be with us for at least 2 years. And Wright, like after he's going to be out for this year, but then he's got another 3 years following that. He's a first round player. He's kind of like Brady Singer. He had a Cy Young caliber year a few years ago, but then riddled with injuries and just bad luck. He had a down year and then, had Tommy John. But to me, like when he comes back next year and has those 3 years, like we're gonna have a guy who could possibly be an ace, or maybe not an ace, but like a stud, a mid rotation guy, and we'll have him on a rookie contract for 3 years, so he'll be cheap. And if we've kind of had a bit of a trend as of late of taking guys who were either injured or whose velocities were dipping and just like sort of fixing them and getting their velocity up. Kind of like 35-year-old Aroldis Chapman. He was throwing 94 before we signed him. And then after some time in the system, I know the pitching coaches made him straighten out his back and he was back to throwing 100 plus miles per hour. Or the big one is Cole Reagans. He was kind of in a similar deal. He had 2 Tommy Johns and was throwing only 92. He comes to us. I'm not quite sure what we did, but he starts throwing 100 miles per hour again.
Yeah, I mean,
and developing some.
Yeah, for sure. And we're talking about Reagans. he's in some Cy Young talks right now, and which is really awesome as well.
Yeah, and I mean, the sample size with Lynch and Bubic last year wasn't very big, but I kind of like what I saw out of both of them, especially Bubic. Bubic looked great the first part of last year, and I think he had a couple rough starts, but he looked more consistent last year, and it looked like he was pitching deeper into games. I mean, it's unfortunate that they got hurt, but like seeing what's happening with some of these pitchers after the new pitching coaches came in last year, like it's kind of got me hope with guys like Kyle Wright and Nick Anderson's an established vet who has connections with Coach Q. So
yeah, and I mean, I completely agree with what you say on all of that, and I mean, we got a lot of players that had a good season last year, kind of like you said. A huge bounce backs from several different players, and the record definitely didn't show it because they all had their bounce backs at bad timing. The biggest example of that is MJ Melendez. He had one of the worst seasons to start off with for the first, really until August. And then after August, he turned it around and was one of the best players on the entire team. But that just shows that our coaches are able to actually fix players. And, I've always hated the term fixing or a coach fixing a player because it's just a coach. You can only do so much. A player has to do really all the work. But we noticed a lot of that, and especially like you said with Wright. I mean, you don't just have almost a Cy Young season and then just never be good again. I mean, that's rare for that to happen. And same with Brady Singer. You don't have a season that was that good and then just have an awful season. So it's bound to have another good season after that.
yeah, and I guess on that MJ Melendez note, Massey kind of went through a similar deal. I think he's batting like almost under 100 with a batting average, and he didn't get his first walk till like 34 games into the year. And he was a good hitter in the minors, but like, hey, I hadn't been able to translate it into the big leagues yet. But I guess it's kind of like what Rex Hedler says. Baseball is a contagious sport. You notice when Bobby broke out, suddenly everybody broke out.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I'll kind of go into this later when we go to our next thing. But to me, I think that's kind of what's going to be key coming into this year. Are these young guys, specifically Bobby and Vinny, maybe coming off to a hot start, and that's going to like trickle down to the other guys. Now what I don't want is for us to get overly aggressive, because that's what kind of hurt us last year. We had guys wanting to be overly aggressive. We kind of had the same mentality coming in where we believed we were underdogs and we believed we could win the division. And while that's great and all, we can't be over aggressive. And we saw guys try to do too much early on. But I think as brutal as last year was, that was kind of a necessary learning experience. Because I think coming into this year, guys are going to know, they're going to have the same mentality of winning the division, but they're going to know how to do it. Whereas last year they didn't know how to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I'd be getting off topic with this, but I mean, last year was one of the worst starts to a baseball season I've seen in a long time. And we had an amazing player, Bobby Witt Jr. I believe he went the first 3 or 4 games hitless, and along with several different players. And it is a contagious sport because once Bobby got a hit, they all started getting hits. And Bobby had an amazing August, and you notice, like I said, MJ turned it around in August. A few of our pitchers turned it around in August, and Bobby Witt Jr.'s season last year is kind of the reason why I chose that as my best move for the contract extension. I mean, it's not the best extension looking at it. I believe he has an opt out after 7, 8, and 9. Contract wise, it's definitely not the best. It's not the most team friendly. But again, we've been begging for. Every single one of us had begged for that extension. We got it. It was the biggest contract in Royals history. If it pans out for the 14 years, it's the 3rd biggest contract in baseball history. And which, us being a small market team, that's not an excuse anymore. And it kind of showed it, whether it was just for a new stadium vote or any of that nature. We finally got it, and that's why that is the best move of the offseason. Honestly, probably one of the best moves in Royals history, honestly.
For sure.
Next up, let's see, is your X Factor. So for your X Factor, you chose Hunter Renfroe. Why is that?
So kind of like what I said earlier, it's baseball is a contagious sport. And Hunter Renfroe, his storyline right now is kind of a lot like Kendrys Morales, where he's a slugger. He's had some really great years, but he's coming off a down year, and we signed him to a 2-year deal, sort of like Camo. And I guess on that baseball is contagious note, if Renfroe comes out and he plays like last year, he's going to be kind of getting like Hunter Dozier vibes, or like 2022 Carlos Santana vibes, where every time you see him in the lineup, your heart just kind of sinks, and you know you're not going to score a lot of runs. And that's going to affect other guys if he's coming out striking out every at bat. That's gonna rub off on other guys. But if he comes out like he has every other year aside from last year and just murders the ball 450 feet every time, well, that's also going to rub off on the other guys, but in a much better way. And to me, that's why he's the X factor, because if he does great, I believe everybody else is going to do great. If he comes out and he's just not performing well, I think that's going to affect the other guy, everybody else, in a negative manner.
Yeah. I chose Seth Lugo for mine. And reason being is it was a contract that several people have called an overpay. Even myself, I kind of started questioning if it was an overpay for that contract. And part of that is the reason why I think it's going to be an X Factor deal, because I believe it's a 2-year contract for $45 million, with an opt out after the second year, possibly 3 years. He could either be really good or really bad. And I mean, he's been a starter for, I believe, going on once. Just last year was his first starting season. So he was great last year. And the only thing is, he could definitely have an off year. And him having an off year, we're thinking second or third guy in that rotation, that could be a huge make or break for the team. That could be the reason why we lose 15 extra games this year. But if he goes off and goes 15-2 on the season, which is probably a little unrealistic, that's 15 more wins in the Royals' pockets. That's 15 wins closer to winning the division, and he is going to be a huge pitcher that we need to watch after, because again, like I said, that's the make or break or at least for our rotation.
Yeah, I guess kind of to add on to that, earlier I'd mentioned that the Lugo signing kind of started a domino effect that led to the other signings. And something about Lugo's contract that's different than the others is that his opt-out doesn't come after the second year. So barring a trade, he's going to be guaranteed 2 years with us. And if he comes out this year and he performs like he does last year or even better, then like the other players like Renfroe and Waka that have those opt-outs after 1 year, they may not pick up those options. They may decide to stay with the team and maybe run it back, and we go and maybe make a few other moves. Free agents, we're possibly looking at an even better 2025 Royals team that could possibly win 90 games or more.
Yeah. And I feel like almost all the guys on our team are possible X factors. But I completely agree with what you countered with on the X factor signing right there, and that it could be the make or break. He has an awful season. All these guys want to go. That's that. All these signings are down the drain. But if he does great, then yeah, might have him for another year, maybe another 2 years. Next up, and finally, the overall grade. You did an A plus. Go ahead and explain why you chose A plus.
Well, I mean, I think even without the Bobby Witt Jr., I would go ahead and put this at the very least an A. But like, I mean, this was probably the most uncharacteristic offseason I've ever experienced as a Royals fan, and I think this might be the most uncharacteristic offseason period in Royals history, because I like my dad and everybody else above the age of like 50, they've never seen anything like this out of this team. So for us to go out and do what we did, especially considering I don't think we were ever intending on spending more than 30 million on free agents, because we had 30 million coming off the books and we wound up spending like 47 million on free agents for like this year alone. So for them to like not only keep their word but to exceed it, I think to me that like that warrants an A plus. And then you throw in the Bobby Witt Jr. extension, and like that's probably a whole nother tier on itself.
Yeah, yeah. I chose an A plus plus. Similar to what you said, everybody around me that raised me to be a Royals fan has never seen this before. I've never seen this before. And one big example that I've used almost really since that Waka signing is since even in the 2014 offseason, after we won the ALCS, lost in the World Series, they didn't go out and spend the money like they have now. And their biggest acquisition was Kendrys Morales. It was 2 years and 2 years, $17 million contract. And I think it's huge, the fact that we're coming off, I believe, the second worst season in Royals history, and we come out and spend $105 million, and not even the entire offseason. In 1 week, we spent $105 million, and I'm not sure what the complete total is now with Bobby and everything. But I mean, again, this has been the best offseason I've seen. It's not only been the best offseason just in Royals history, but one of the best off seasons this year in all of baseball. It's been consistently graded in top 3, top 4 best off seasons. And I similar to you, I probably would have given it maybe an A plus. And as soon as that Bobby Witt Jr. extension happened, I mean, that is something that I knew the Royals would get around to it. It just didn't seem like they were in a rush. That just completely blew the top off of everything. And that was something that I was expecting, but I also wasn't expecting it to be as big as it was. I think I said in a previous episode of my podcast that it was going to be that I thought it'd be maybe 8 years, 100 million or 120 million, and this was not what I was expecting at all with a contract extension. I mean, again, I believe it's technically 11 years guaranteed, 288 million guaranteed, 14 years, $377.7 million possible. And it gives me hope. It gives me hope. That's the best thing I can say. And I would have never guessed last October, I would have ever somewhat liked our front office. I've consistently hated it for quite some time now, but I can now say that I love the front office, and those are things that I never thought I'd ever say.
Yeah, I think the key to this season is going to be it's pretty obvious, not getting off to a slow start. I think we're notoriously a second half team. I believe if we can make it to the All-Star break within 5 games under 500 or better, I think we're still very much in the race, because I don't see anyone in our division winning 90 games. I think 87 is the ceiling for this division. And that's very attainable if we can manage to stay around 500. Because, in typical Royals fashion, we're going to pop off in the second half and get a winning record. And, in most years, that doesn't mean anything because we're already 40 games under 500. But in a season where we're at 500 at the All-Star break, that's not only going to get us a division title, but that momentum might carry over into October, because we saw something exactly like that happen in 2014, because I believe we were 4 games under 500 coming into June. And then we rattled off a 10-game winning streak. And I think we cooled off a little around All-Star break, but then got hot again in August and September. And then, we saw that almost World Series title run.
Yeah. So with an unbiased opinion, what do you think the 2024 Royals record is in placement in the division?
I don't know. Because it's really hard for me to make this, considering how optimistic I am. But I think win total wise, I would put us somewhere between 75 and 85. I guess if we had to do right down the middle, I would say 78. I wouldn't. I mean, there's a lot of I have a lot of reasons to believe that we'll break out and win the division this year. But I also understand the development's not finished. Like guys like I think Singer's going to have a bounce back year, but he's still got to develop that third pitch. I think Bobby's Bobby. I think he's here. He's arrived. I think Vinny still might need some development because he hasn't really played all that much. I don't think he'll need it, but I don't think like he'll need it as bad as some of the other guys, but he's still going to need it because he has not played all that much. I think MJ and Massey, those are guys that are kind of question marks. We saw them break out second half last year, but we got to see it for a full season. And if they get off to another slow start again, it might be like one of those 2014 Mike Moustakas situations where one of them is going to have to get sent down.
Mm-hmm.
And if that happens, that might cost us a few wins, possibly.
Yeah. I put him at 78 and 84. I was trying. I think that they have the possibility to win 85. I truly think. I mean, I just look at the Twins' record last year. How many games they won? I believe they went 87 and 75, and that's just absolutely awful to be division champions. And I think the Royals can definitely. I think they can do that, and you can never be unbiased. I think as a fan, as much as you want to or try to, I don't think that's an actual thing. But I think the Royals can win the division. I really do. I think they could at least keep it a close run, give the Twins at least a run for their money. I think the Tigers might perform decently well. Maybe they did good last year. I think the Guardians are going to have a down year. I think they're slowly on the downfall to a rebuild season. And of course, the White Sox are the White Sox. But I'm just super excited for this season. I think all Royals fans are, probably yourself included. I haven't been this excited for a baseball season in years. Since 2016 opening day, I have not been this excited for an opening day.
Yeah, no, this is I do this every off season. I always go back and I rewatch those 14, 15 teams, not just the postseason highlights, but the regular season highlights. And just for some reason, this off season, when I watch those highlights, I just get a different feeling. Like it's always like a pipe dream where I want to experience that again. But I actually watched those clips and watched those games. And even like almost like I watched the last hour and a half of Game 5 of the World Series last night. And just for some reason, it felt like an attainable goal. Like I didn't feel like it was such a Hail Mary attempt. Mm-hmm. Like we might actually pull it off. I mean, we may not pull it off, but I don't feel like we're going to be too far off from the playoffs this year, like we are in the past.
Yeah, and the best thing about it too is we can only get better, and that's been my motto this entire offseason. We can only get better, can't get worse. And if we're a couple games shy of winning the division this year, we know that next year it's ours, and which again just it gets me so excited, and I'm ready to watch it.
Yeah, something I will say though that might affect some outcomes of the games is I believe when Kauffman Stadium sold out, like I truly believe we might be we might have the best home field advantage in all of baseball when we're sold out. Like even when things aren't going well for us record wise, like a sellout crowd is going to get inside of other players' heads. Like we kind of treat baseball like football, and you don't see a lot of MLB fan bases like that. So I believe like if we can play decent enough to where we're attracting those crowds of 30,000 plus, like I do think that's going to end up translating into more wins because it's going to energize our guys and it's going to really get inside the heads of other teams.
Mm-hmm.
And that could translate into more wins.
Yeah, and I made a post on my story yesterday about how I was just out and about in Kansas City, and I mean I saw Royal jerseys everywhere, and I haven't seen it like this in a long time. And I think we all can say that we hate bandwagon fans. I mean, to an extent, but it's also nice to see that maybe this Bobby Witt Jr. extension caused us to get a huge bandwagon fan base. But as long as we're selling out the stadium and getting fans in and doing like what you said, getting in the other teams' heads when they travel to us and have to play in front of a sold out Kansas City, I'm game. And I mean, opening day is already almost sold out, and I myself got tickets to opening day, and I'm so excited to see it, and I think it'll stay like this all season. I mean, last year with our horrendous record, I believe we still had like 4 or 5 sold out games, which isn't a lot, but for as bad of as a team as we had last year, that's a lot, and so be it. Let's keep it up. Just got to get the fans out there.
I think the one thing that might I think talent wise we do have talent to win the division. I think the one thing that could stop us is that over aggression. Like we cannot have the kind of start to a season this year like we did last year. And I don't just mean like record wise or stat wise. Like we cannot have guys getting too aggressive at the plate or in the field too, because we made some defensive errors last year too because guys were almost being too aggressive. And I don't like calling this guy out because I like him, but MJ Melendez he did kind of have a problem with that. And I by no means hate that. I love that he's trying so hard that he's making mistakes. Like I love that. But like also I think like as a big leaguer, you got to recognize when to swing for the fences and make the big play and when to maybe just do the little things. And that's part of the growth. That's part of the maturity. And if these guys are putting in the work that I think they are, because I follow up on their stories and they seem like they're mature. They seem like they learn from their mistakes. Like if they can learn from that and process that into this year, like I think that's going to probably be what helps this team win the division or have a winning record.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, definitely, I think similar to what you said, there was a lot of aggression last year, and I think it got to a point where it felt like players felt like they had to be aggressive because we weren't winning, and they felt like they had to be the MJ Melendez, for example. It felt like he was trying to hit a bomb every single at bat, not even try to just make contact, just try to hit a bomb, and it honestly, it probably was because he was looking at the record and we were already 15 games under 500 within the first month of the season. And and I definitely don't think it helps different players when you're that bad. But that's why it got to a point during July, August that they said, "Hey, we're not going to win the division. Let's just start working on our stuff." And that's when like every single player on the team turned it around and had a good season. I don't think a single Royal had a bad second half last year. I think they all had at least average or better. And again, aggression is a good, but it can also be a huge weakness for a player.
Yeah, I think these guys are going to know coming in how to maybe not overdo it, not be over aggressive. I think the big development point for this year, and this is why I think we're going to maybe only win 78 games as talented as we are. Like you're kind of in uncharted territory where now the goal isn't to figure out what big league pitching is like or get up to speed with the game. Now the goal is how to win games on a big league level, win high leverage games on a big league level, because like now there's legit expectations. We didn't really have expectations for them last year. We just wanted them to get better and develop. This year, it's like we expect you to go out and win, and that kind of adds a whole new layer to the development. Kind of reminds me of what Ned Yost said after that ALCS in 2015. He said last year, referring to 2014, we were excited to be there. This year, we expect to be here. Well, I kind of feel like that's going to be the mentality coming into this season. They expect to get better this year, whereas they were excited to even be in the big leagues last year.
Yeah, definitely. Again, I think we're all excited, and we'll just have to see how it pans out for us or for them. I say for us because we're fans, but for the team. But I think that's gonna wrap it up. Unless you got anything else to take away or add, we definitely need to get you back on another episode and do some more talking. Maybe after spring training before opening day, and because we do have more collabs coming soon, so stay tuned for that as well.
Sure. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. Well,
that was Depressed Royals fan.
You too.
Hope you guys enjoyed our little call. I know myself, I continue to
I like to ramble and go off topic, so apologies for that. Hope you guys enjoyed what we talked about today. If you guys did enjoy it, go ahead and let your fellow Royals fans know about the podcast. Anyway, that is going to wrap up episode 10 of the Royal Center podcast. It's currently released on Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify. Once again, thank you for dropping in and giving this a listen. Hope you guys enjoyed. You guys have a great morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, whatever time it is for you, however you're listening. Have a good one, and see you on the next podcast.
Audio Jungle.